Brandy.
Hi.
Brand Digital. Brand on the Run. I have a meme for you to look at, so please explain how it reads and what is in the image.
It reads Uncancelable since 1989. Candace. Premieres March 19th. Daily Wire. And then it has that one guy in it. I know him.
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
That guy in it. And he's pointing backwards at this big billboard with Candace. It's Candace Owens, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Candace Owens. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah,
okay,
so
and he's smiling all like
yeah, we've got a very proud looking Ben Shapiro pointing at a billboard that's up, and it said the billboard reads "Uncancelable since 1989." It's got Candace Owens on it,
okay.
And Daily Wire on there, and premiering March 19th on the Daily Wire. Let me break out my wallet and fund some grifters. Okay, disclaimer. I just made a joke about funding grifters in general. I did not definitely say that the Daily Wire is crammed full to the brim with grifters like a clown car full of snake oil that wish to become 150 real boys and girls. I did not say that.
Okay. No, you didn't. No.
I did not say that. I did not specifically call them out. And I am definitely not calling the two people portrayed in this meme absolutely deceitful, bad faith sacks of lying garbage. I did not say that. Did not call them that.
No.
Regarding this meme, the image has been making its rounds lately, mostly in the realm of, quote, poorly aged things. And I have a feeling most people listening to this episode already know why. But boy, oh boy, when you look into these two photogenic, degenerate genetic dysmorphications, things get goodly terrible in the best worst ways.
I know nothing.
That's great because I'm gonna be informing you on this situation, which
okay.
It is. I mean, it is the chef's kiss of just. I don't know. It's just fantastic. It's great. It's terrible.
Is it ironic? Is it an ironic story?
There is way more irony to this than you're going to realize.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
I mean, this is going to have insane levels of irony.
Okay.
And not just because of the meme. There's way more irony to this. And we here at Memingless just love looking into the lives of people in these memes. Before we really break it down what the meme itself is all about. So, let's start with something in this photo that isn't poorly aged. That's right, that 8-year-old pointing to the billboard of Candace Owens is 40-year-old Ben Shapiro, to whom I'd like to say, Shapiro. As long as I pronounce that right, some of our Guarani speakers are going to really appreciate that one. I don't actually know if we have any Guarani speakers. It's mostly spoken in Uruguay and Paraguay, and I don't think we have any listeners there yet.
Okay.
So, but I just figured Shapiro is the word for fuck you in Guarani, and it rhymes with Shapiro, and I thought that was funny, so I threw it together.
Okay. I don't know what that meant.
I can never stop languaging. I don't know why, but I have no idea if I pronounced that right or not, though. Now, Candace will likely be the main subject of our conversation, and holy crap, I know her prejudice and deceit have been covered ad nauseum, but I dug up some nonsense that you are not going to expect, even if you've heard every other person cover her ever. So, we're going to start with the handsome little guy whose mom dressed him that day. According to a now deleted page on Daily Wire, Benji Shapiro was born on January 15th, 1984, making him freshly 40 years old, which I have to hand it to Ben. He's got some good skincare or something, but we'll touch on that later. Let's not worry now about how he looks like he kind of looks like a growth stunted child star.
Kind of, yeah. I see that.
But let's not dwell on that because it's not appropriate to make fun of someone's hilarious appearance. Now, I'm going to say this right out. If you are self-conscious about your appearance, been excluded, that says nothing about your character, and beauty is absolutely subjective. It's only funny to make fun of Benj's appearance for very specific binge-related reasons. And we will get to those, but let's figure out who Benji Boy is as a person. And I promise it is both scary in awful ways and hilarious in surprising ways.
Do I gotta? Oh,
You gotta.
okay.
You gotta. You know,
All right.
you agreed to
I
be
did.
in the podcast, and you gotta. So, he genuinely looks pretty good for being Yakuza's Kume, having crawled out of the TV like the girl from The Ring 4 decades ago. At that time, Benjo's probably terrified parents were Jewish conservatives, and it would be not until Ben was 9 years old that they started practicing Orthodox Judaism. According to Benj, he and his family still practice Judaism today. In fact, you'll see Benj often wears a kippah, which is a cap that is a public symbol of being a Jewish person. Of course, some in the Jewish community question how Jewish Shapiro actually is. For example, Phil M. Cohen wrote in a blog for the Israeli Times, quote, "Is he conversant with the Jewish understanding of the nature of the fetus and Judaism's concomitant understanding of abortion, which teaches that abortion, for whatever reason, is not an act of murder because the fetus is not considered a human being with the identical status of the mother until the baby's head crowns? Or does Mr. Shapiro merely conform to the values of American conservatism, values in this matter developed and fought for by Catholic and fundamentalist Christianity traditions that view a fetus in contradistinction to Judaism as a fully formed person with rights transcending those of the woman bearing that fetus?"
First off, that's a lot of big words.
It's
My kind of
it's a lot of
small
odd
brain.
words. Like
Yeah.
there are so many words that are adjacent to those
I feel like they were
that
just
would be
thrown in
more
there.
understandable, for
Yeah,
the
I
general
feel like you
public.
could have made that a little bit more
It
understandable.
was oddly worded, but
I didn't know that was a thing with Judaism, though. I didn't know that was a. I didn't
yeah,
know that was a thing.
yeah. So abortion is not considered murder because the mother is the person
Right.
and the fetus is not.
Right. Okay.
And that
But yeah, I didn't know that was a.
I definitely prefer that belief over the fundamentalist Christianity version, wherein life begins at conception or at
Right,
4
right.
weeks, or you can detect a heartbeat. It's like you could detect a heartbeat in my fucking finger, but I would still amputate it if there was a problem,
Yeah. Okay.
But that being said,
Moving on.
anyone who is publicly religious is potentially the target of accusations of hypocrisy. For example, in our 2023 Halloween episode, we stumbled across a guy who accused churches that hold trunk or treat events of not being actual Christians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because God forbid they do trunk or treat. Oh, God.
You can't be
Anyway,
doing that for the kids. No.
yeah, no, that's so anti-Christian.
But they got to be born though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah.
have to be born.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Everybody
Okay, moving
born, but they don't get candy. If they get candy on Halloween, that's a problem.
Anyway.
I'm not going to worry too much about Benja's religious beliefs because his social beliefs mostly suck already. Now, I've been calling Shaplenko Benj for a while, and some very well-versed historians of the internet and internet slang may have several theories as to why I am calling him that. I will say, sans the massive hog, there are multiple definitions on Urban Dictionary that fit him. Phrases like try hard or high ego, but tries to piss everyone off to get a laugh when secretly people talk about him behind his back.
I personally like Shaplenko though. Right now, that's
Shaplenko?
That's just in my head now. Shaplenko.
Yeah, Shaplenko. I
like that one.
That one rang well for me. But the word Benj means all those things. But that last definition would be perfect because it does fit him very well. Except for I had to leave out the first part because it used the F slur, since people is dumb and can't express themselves without slurs. Benj is likely to be one of those people, though, who are laughed at behind their back.
Oh, definitely.
Just look at what happened when he left Breitbart. So, Breitbart, do you know what Breitbart is?
What the hell is Breitbart?
Breitbart is this far-right publication. It is
Ah.
full of fucking nonsense. And he was a contributor there for quite a while. They love their far-right
Makes sense.
theories and all this, pushing like hardcore pro-life things, anti climate change, stuff like that. Just it's full of stupidity. An article on Breitbart was posted, then quickly deleted regarding his departure. And I have to say, this is something I have to say, I am quite thankful for the perpetual archiving of the internet. It has been tremendous for this podcast. Nothing's ever fucking deleted. I don't, if you're going to post something online, you better think first because
It's there.
It's
It's
there.
always
I
there.
don't care how hardcore you deleted it. In fact, I found deleted things from deleted websites. So, and that leads to something about Candace Owens that I learned that there's almost no way a lot of her critics are aware of this because they would have brought it up otherwise.
So you've learned it, and now you can never unlearn it.
That's right. That's how history works. It's permanent now. Ever since the internet started, everything's permanent. So, this now deleted Breitbart article was not nice to Benj and was written in a very clear mocking tone. Here's a snippet from the article. Breitbart California editor J.B. Pollock, Shapiro's friend and fellow Orthodox Jew, expressed concern for his former colleague. Quote, I'm worried. I enjoyed listening to Ben read Breitbart California stories word for word without attribution on his morning radio show. Now what will he do for content?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So it was quickly deleted right after that.
It was deleted right after. So
did you mean to hit like publish or something? And it was like, whoops, my bad.
we'll see. We're gonna kind of touch
Dive
on
into
that
it?
here now. So this is not exactly a flattering article, and to make things worse, this article was written by one William Bigelow, a known pseudonym for Benj's own father.
Yeah. Okay. Way to go, Dad. So I wonder if he went crying. I was like, Dad,
But Dad,
how dare you both die?
But Dad. Okay,
God.
now we don't know that Benj's dad actually
Okay.
wrote this article,
All right.
but it would be pretty
did.
jarring if he did.
He did. We're
Now,
just saying he did.
I will say when I read that the article was posted and deleted pretty shortly after, I had wondered if it was because his father had accidentally used the pseudonym that people were already aware of.
Yeah.
But to be fair, according to Politico, Benj said Breitbart put this under his byline because they knew I'd have to out him. The fact that they would use my father's pseudonym in order to attack me just exposes how despicable they are. Benj sucks.
Right.
He's terrible, but so is Breitbart. So
Yeah. I mean, it's all terrible.
I wouldn't put it past them to have done that. And Benj's father, he resigned from Breitbart as well, almost immediately after he did.
Okay.
So,
I mean, yeah.
yeah.
Could have
And
happened that way. Yeah.
I will give it to Ben.
Still funny.
It's still fun. It's still fucking hilarious. But I will give it to Benj. They are despicable. As for Benj's reasons why he left Breitbart, it was because Breitbart reporter Michelle Fields had been assaulted by Donald Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, when he grabbed her by the arm and yanked her away from Trump as she was trying to question him. Breitbart essentially did nothing about the situation, then not only proceeded to silence the reporters from posting or tweeting about the situation, but also came up with a theory that Fields and another witness had misidentified Lewandowski.
What was she wearing? I'm just kidding. Sorry. I'm sorry. I thought that's where you're going to go with it. I thought you were going to, they were questioning about what she was wearing at the time.
You see, when you're wearing, when you're,
Was it a low-cut blouse?
when you're wearing
Was it a skirt?
When you're wearing an emblazoned journalist jacket, you're asking to be yanked,
Okay. Anyway.
according according to BuzzFeed.
Oh, BuzzFeed.
Yeah, I know. Well, so BuzzFeed it's not my favorite source of information,
Right.
but they are pretty good at getting information.
Yeah.
Like there's
Can
times
be.
I don't always trust their interpretation of the info they get, but they're really good at getting info early on.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're sometimes a pretty decent
Don't
source.
lie. When you're on BuzzFeed, do you take their quizzes to find out what
Fuck
onion
no.
you are, or like what apple? Oh, okay.
Onion.
Is there different kind of onions? There's different kind of onions.
You're a white onion.
What
a yellow
layer of
onion.
the onion are you?
What layer? I'm about 6 layers deep.
Are you the
at this
Shrek layer?
point. The Shrek layer.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, BuzzFeed. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. No. I think Shrek's a little sweeter than I am, so I think I'm maybe a few layers deeper. But according to BuzzFeed, some Breitbart employees who had publicly defended Fields, the woman who was attacked, were threatened with being fired.
Yeah.
Now, Breitbart is a shit publication, but why would they be so dedicated to defending Trump and throwing their own reporters under the bus in order to do so? That's a little confusing, right? Because it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot to protect somebody who's outside of your publication. But then again, I know the first thought most people are going to have is, well, it's their listeners, it's their viewers, it's their fan base that they're trying to not alienate because of the popularity of Donald Trump. Well, in 2012, founder Andrew Breitbart dies, and 2 of his closest friends and business partners take over at the CEO position. These were Chief Operating Officer Lawrence Solov and founding board member / walking lit fart flame Steve Bannon. Bannon, of course, is a major Trump ally, which is likely why this wet sack of butt hair was so eager to defend Trump, even at the expense of his own staff.
It was also female staff, so I mean, of course they didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
I mean, but they were also calling Benj a liar as well,
Wow.
which, I mean, he was protecting a female and God forbid, right? So Steve Bannon actually worked for Trump for quite a while. He's been there on the Trump team for a long time.
I
And
recognize the name.
and in fact, he had a position in Trump's cabinet that was created basically for him. He had it for a while, and then when he exited the position didn't exist anymore. And I have to imagine that the position wasn't fucking necessary.
No.
So I will say, good on Ben for not putting up with their behavior and giving an immediate resignation. Ben's father also resigned about the same time, and they weren't the first or last in a slew of resignations. The exodus continued with other staff members, many of whom allegedly were not pleased with the direction that Breitbart had taken.
There was more to it than just that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more to it than just
there
that
was.
one incident. Yeah, no.
I'm sure there were NDAs all over the fucking gaff.
Sure.
I guarantee there were. And there's probably a lot of information we'll never know. And if I had more resources, I would pry a bit more. But so Benj did a good thing. Cool. But he is also a very deceitful and incredibly flawed public figure who, in my opinion, does much more harm than good. Sometimes his public lies and intentional misleading behaviors are dangerous. For example, when in 2003, he compared Palestinians and Israeli Arabs to, quote, a hostile population, suggesting that they need to be basically asked to leave or gotten rid of somehow.
Eradicated?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say anything about killing them, just
yeah,
that they need to
but-
not be in the area anymore.
Is eradicated just killing?
No,
No,
but it
yeah.
could be conflated that way.
Yeah.
And he didn't say that.
Yeah. Well.
And in 2007, he said that Palestinian Arabs are, quote, rotten to the core.
Yeah. Okay.
Or it could also be scary how far the reach is that he has. According to NPR, so according to NPR, I'll just quote this directly. Stories published by the site Shapiro founded, The Daily Wire, received more likes, shares, and comments on Facebook than any other news publisher by a wide margin. In May of 2021, The Daily Wire generated more Facebook engagement on its articles than the New York Times, The Washington Post, NBC News, and CNN combined.
Yeah. Gross. Okay.
That's fucking terrifying.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I mean, it's scary, especially considering that the site downplays the effects of racism and suggests that anti-racism is the actual issue facing America. Or how, with little to no scientific evidence, focused on the supposed side effects of the COVID vaccine rather than on the public health benefits. Or falsely stoking fears about Islam taking over white countries. But
There's a lot going on there.
yeah, there's a lot. And I have sources for all, like, you see all the blue? Those are my sources. But sometimes unveiling Benja's deceit can be quite funny. For example, on the back cover of his awful novel, one of the last quotes of praise reads, "Meet our new Ayn Rand," from Salon.com. Something I would argue is already not a good thing, but Benj liked it so much that he posted the quote on Twitter. Now, the funny part is, if you look up, and I know you personally already know, but some of the listeners might not.
I didn't know who that even was. So, yeah.
But the best part is, if you look up the full article, the title reads, "Meet our new Ayn Rand. Ben Shapiro's ham-fisted propaganda fiction is even worse than you guessed. The wingnut pundit resents the liberal tone of TV, but turns out cartoonish right-leaning prose."
And it's published on his book, right?
Yeah.
On the back of a book.
Now, I don't know if he didn't read the article or if he thought it was clever to use the first part of the phrase out of context or the first part of the phrase out of context as if it were praise for his book. But either way, it is hard not to laugh at him. Plus, the book is fucking terrible.
Right.
It is so bad. And he mentions height a lot, just like he does in real life, because he's short.
I was going to say, is he short? Okay, so he mentions... Okay.
So he defends himself a lot, saying he's 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I saw a photo of him next to Candace Owens,
All right.
who is not much taller than that. And he looks way shorter than her.
Was she wearing heels?
Well, that's one thing. That's a possibility. But the one that is really exaggerated between the two. So listeners, if you look it up and you want to make fun of Ben Shapiro and you find this photo, and Candace Owens looks like she's a foot taller than him, that one's photoshopped. The real photo, he still looks a little shorter than her. And he claims to be 5'9". And whereas most people put his height at 5'8", but then there were people saying that actually it's turned out to be proven that he's 5'9". The fact that we're having a conversation about this means he's too fucking obsessed with height.
Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking
That's like an
difference.
inch.
It doesn't matter how goddamn tall you are anyway, period. I mean, unless you're trying to reach things on a high shelf. Like, people grab me to reach high shelves all the time. And, like, that's the only value of being tall, really, unless you want to play basketball. And
Here's also going back and forth by an inch, basically. But wait,
when people would call him 5'8", he would correct them and say 5'9". When people call him shorter than that, he would correct them by saying 5'9". And it's just it's so absurd, because who gives a fuck about the height? If somebody called me, it'd be very difficult.
but what about the length? Sorry.
Yeah, it's the width that matters, right? But
Does it go on about the length? Like, gotta include the other. What's the other two?
Shoe size?
All right.
But like if somebody called me, this would be hard for them to claim. But if somebody called me 5'8", I would just ignore the message.
Like, okay.
I don't care. Like if people thought I was 5'8", whatever. But for some reason, this 5'8" conservative seems to put a lot of value on a person's height. And for example, the main character in his, quote, ham-fisted propaganda fiction is a quote from his book, "Bear of a man, 6'3" in his bare feet and 215 pounds in his underwear." Which I wouldn't call a bear of a man, considering that I'm bigger than that. And no one would describe me in that way.
Okay.
We could laugh at excerpts from his book all day, but his much more influential work is in the form of his aforementioned Daily Wire.
Going back a little bit, he was so wet from writing that. He got off so hard writing those words for that book.
His dick was hard,
like
and
6'3".
his asshole was wet.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards was just going on in his pants.
Barefoot too.
Yeah. He was thinking
6'3" barefoot.
He was thinking of those feet. And the guy had to be in his underwear.
His underwear.
Benj was just he could not get enough of it. He couldn't get enough of that tall.
He's like, this is it. This is the
bear of a man with a huge misunderstanding of what a bear of a man would be. Because was he extremely hairy? Did he describe that? No.
Okay.
And
I would picture him extremely hairy.
That would make him more bear-like for sure. And the thing is, I'm taller than 6'3", and I weigh like over 240 pounds. So it's like, and I'm not. Nobody would call me a bear of a man. But
back to it.
His more influential work is in the form of the aforementioned Daily Wire, which brings us to the Billboard. The Daily Wire pumps out right-wing talking points and often brings up cancel culture, which is likely why Candace Owens' new program is called Uncancelable. Before we get to why this image is now a meme, which I'm sure most people have predicted already, let's get to know who Candace Owens was before she joined the Daily Wire. So, in August of 2017, Owens posted her first ever political video. At least that's how she introduces herself on her website, which you have to pay to be a part of, by the way, but we'll circle back to that 2017 video in just a bit. Okay. She has since become a very popular right-wing voice, garnering 5 million Twitter followers and millions on YouTube if you include her regular channel and her podcast channel. And she's a regular name in the news. But one thing that kind of struck me a little bit is that she has 5 million people following her on Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. So she's got 5 million people wanting to amplify her voice, supposedly, on Twitter, where we know Elon Musk got rid of all the bots, so it couldn't be that. But even if you combine her subscribers on both her YouTube channels, it doesn't come near that. And on top of that, if you think about it, there's got to be some overlap, right? So a lot of her people who listen to her on her podcast channel probably are the same people who are subscribed to her other YouTube channel.
Maybe,
So there's 2 YouTube channels, and there's probably a lot of overlap there. So even if you don't consider that, though, it still doesn't reach 5 million, like hardly at all.
Okay.
Which kind of gives me this impression that a lot of right-wing people do, and they go out of their ways to, quote, support certain people that they actually don't give a shit about.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm thinking that a lot of her followers are probably people who are following her on Twitter just to inflate her numbers when they actually don't give a shit about what she has to say. Otherwise, they'd probably also be subscribed on YouTube. And one example I can think of is that a member of Mumford & Sons came out and supported this crazy right-wing piece of shit. And there's comments on this thing. One person tweeted, I have never been a Mumford & Sons fan, but I'm going to buy all the albums now. And somebody else, another right-wing person, commented, ditto. It's like, okay, you're going to buy their albums even though you don't like the music. Just because they like the right-wing idiot you like?
No, they're going to do what they always do. They're going to spend a bunch of money, buy all that stuff. Then Mumford & Sons is going to do something else that they're going to dislike. And then they're going to like burn and break all their DVDs and CDs and stuff that they used their money to buy. And then, you know,
it's the Dixie
and protest against them when they've already spent their money and given them the money. So it's just
the
going to be a
Dixie
circle.
Chicks all over again.
It's everything.
Which is one of my favorite things in the world. When the Dixie Chicks said that they were ashamed to come from the same state as George Bush, a bunch of these right-wing people who are the majority of country fans, they took a steamroller and they ran over a bunch of their CDs out in the middle of the street. And the Dixie Chicks came back and said, thanks for not returning them to the store.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think they're doing the thing they think they're doing. You know?
With Bud Light, like, or something, when they would go out when the whole Bud Light thing happened, and they went into their refrigerator and got all their Bud Light and shot the Bud Light or
they
something.
had already
like, that's
paid for.
Such a waste of beer. Like, that's just a waste of money.
You've
dumbasses.
You've got Kid Rock taking 800 shots.
That's right. Yeah.
At Bud Light, some Bud Light cans. And it's a shit ton of Bud Light. Like I am almost certain he bought all that for the video because it is way more than anybody would keep in their house. Right. And so he shoots like 800 shots at him, lands maybe 50, and there's like leaky cans, and he thinks he's being a badass. And it's all because they were nice to a trans person once, you know?
Yeah, so it's that same kind of scenario. They're like, Mumford & Sons, yes, let's buy all their merch, and then later dislike something they say, and
these are the idiots who bitch about cancel culture, you know, and they're trying to cancel a fucking beer can. They're out of their minds. But anyway,
Mumford & Sons.
Mumford & Sons, yeah.
Which I love Mumford & Sons.
Well, that's the thing. I didn't really look into what this person's politics actually are. He had read a book by Andrew No, who Andrew No is a piece of shit, and he tweeted kind of promoting that book, which if he believes the things that Andrew No believes, that makes him kind of a piece of shit. But I haven't looked into the details of it yet. So I don't know. And I like their music, and I don't really care all that much, you know? Like you and I were listening to System of a Down earlier, and the drummer is now a super right-wing person, and I still love System of a Down.
Yeah, I'll still listen to the music, yeah.
But Candace Owens is a regular name in the news a lot.
Yeah.
She founded something called Blexit. Like Brexit.
Oh yeah, it's weird because like I know the name and I know her face, but like I don't, and I just know that it just
sucks.
Yeah, posts. Yeah, right, Haru? Posts like right wing. You know, she's right wing. That's all I know of her. So
she founded something called Blexit, which by the name you can already tell it's a way to try to convince black people to leave the Democratic Party. But it's also a nonprofit group teaching right-wing values to minority communities, such as how to move beyond the mental plantation created by liberal solutions that foster victimhood and dependency. And how to be self-sufficient and determining your own destiny. It heavily suggests that financial support to minority communities is actually a bad thing somehow. It's the same bootstraps nonsense that the right wing has always been peddling. It's not a new idea. It's just being pitched by a black person to black people. They also continue to stoke fears about critical race theory without actually understanding what it is or being honest about the fact that it's not actually being taught to children. But Owens' right-wing tendencies aren't always so well guised or handled with much finesse. For example, She openly does not believe that police brutality is an issue for black people.
Okay.
Yeah. She also believes that news stories covering the rise of white supremacy in the U.S. are fabricated. She also posts anti-trans sentiments. For example, on Twitter, she posted, quote, "Someone asked me today why trans men aren't being promoted like trans women are, because men would never tolerate such stupidity. Frankly, only women could be emotional and irrational enough to have allowed transgenderism to infiltrate our spaces. We feel bad for trannies." Which, might I add, is a hateful slur.
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, don't fucking use that word. She will also stretch hard, real hard, even harder than a lot of other right-wing people, to protect and justify the behaviors of some of their right-wing mascots. Such as when Kanye West posted, quote, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda." Owens defended this tweet, suggesting that it was not anti-Semitic because it didn't specifically call for the genocide of Jewish people, and that it, quote, "wasn't the beginning of a Holocaust," and that if Kanye meant to say DEFCON 3 as opposed to DEathCon 3,
Which he didn't. Keep going.
if he had meant to say DEFCON 3, that's a military defensive position, not an offensive one. To which I would argue, if you think you need to be in a nuclear defensive position against, quote, "Jewish people," in all caps, by the way, you're still being anti-Semitic. I don't care if it's a defensive or offensive position. You're still being an anti-Semite. Now, Kanye went on to spout off about how much he loves Hitler on InfoWars with Alex Jones. And Alex Jones struggled and failed to keep him from being so transparently in support of Nazis. The whole thing, it's terrible, but it is kind of funny to watch.
Okay, and did she defend him on that one?
I guess it's complicated.
Okay.
Despite going out and about with West, wearing White Lives Matter t-shirts like a couple of transparent provocateurs, Owens went from tweeting about West several times a month in October 2022 to barely mentioning him.
Ooh. Is there tea?
There's tea.
All right.
There might be a reason for this.
Oh.
West was slated to purchase Parler. This is a no-holds-bar social media app where people would never be censored because right-wing people feel victimized by censorship and they need a place where their voices can be heard, which is ironic for many reasons, not the least of which is that left-wing talking points are censored more on Facebook, and it appears that left-wing videos are more likely to be filtered in the restricted mode on YouTube. But also, Candace Owens believes that victimhood culture that we see in America is, quote, "the plaything of a society with too much time on its hands, and that no one plays the victim card when real conflict is happening." But the right, you see, they're persecuted, Brandy. They're persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
So they need Parler. And Parler could really use the boost by being purchased by Kanye West for more than it's worth. Now, this deal never happened. Ye did not purchase Parler, and Owens eventually stopped tweeting constantly about West. But I'm sure these things are unrelated. Oh, wait. At the time, Owens' husband owned Parler. Huh, how about that?
Oh, okay.
But what is important here is that Owens is what is important here about Owens is that she is the strong right-wing voice that and has been. She has always been this strong right-wing voice since her first ever political view in 2017.
Okay.
So a couple of things might catch your ear there.
Mm-hmm.
Which, unlike your nose that your uncle took and never gave back, like the big fucking asshole he is, I will give you your ear back because what am I supposed to do with a podcast when my listeners don't have ears? I still own them, but you can keep them for now. The first ear catch is likely the fact that she said her, quote, first political video. Another thing that might catch your ear is since 2017. Another thing that might catch your ear is literally everything about this.
Uh-huh.
So, in 2017, when you and I were just wee little babies, a 20-something-year-old Candace Owens came out to her parents, which is hard, I know. I was an adult before I came out to my parents, and I just figured if I ever start bringing a boyfriend by, my parents would like to have a heads up. And they thanked me for that warning, not that they wouldn't be judgmental, or not that they would be judgmental, but that they were just glad to not be caught off guard. Owens made a coming out video directed to her parents. Mm-hmm. So let's listen to the bravery of this coming out video.
Mom, Dad, I'm a lesbian. I like girls. Oh, sweetheart. We always knew. But bottom line, we just want our children to be happy, and we love you regardless. You're a brave soul. Oh, thank you guys. Oh, also, I think I might be a conservative. Oh. I don't understand. I can't breathe. Hey, get that camera out of my wife's face. Guys, it's...
Hilarious.
Okay.
Making fun of gay people coming out in the form of coming out as a fucking conservative. Yeah, wow, fucking brave. Mm-hmm. So a reasonable person may be asking, why the coming out party over a fucking political opinion? Obviously, attention. But let's see if we can break down the vexation behind posting this, quote, coming out video. So the term coming out usually refers to something that you are and have always been, not that you've finally been duped by white right-wing grifters or that you plan to become one, which we'll touch on in a moment. Again, I didn't say Candace is definitely, without a doubt, 100% a very obvious grifter. I've not made that claim yet. I just said that coming out isn't a term one would use when deciding to deceive people into a ridiculous ideology of prejudice. Not that Candace is very obviously doing that. I did not say that. In fact, legally speaking, I'm not heavily implying it either. When I mention attention-seeking nonsense prejudice peddlers, I'm not specifically verbally indicating Candace Amber Owens Farmer in any specific direct way. I'm sure if my lawyer were here, he'd be nodding in approval.
Okay.
Leave it. Anyway, what sparked this definitely sincere move that Candid Owens candidly made, namely the coming out video? Let's step back a couple miles, or rather years, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Owens attended the University of Rhode Island to study journalism. Now, considering her utter lack of regard for the profession, it may not be surprising that her college career was cut short. Owens claims that she had to leave college because of an issue with student loans, while a representative for the university just said that she dropped out during her junior year, without specifying why.
Okay.
In 2015, Owens, along with Ioana Alexandrescu, founded a site that initially housed a lot of left-wing points: feminism, acceptance, diversity, environmental issues, etc. But obviously, Owens is not this leftist any longer. She even went as far as going in front of the Congressional Judiciary Committee, saying that the Southern Strategy, a very obvious and well-documented effort to silence black voices and stifle black votes, never happened. And part of her argument is that Democrats are the bad guys, and they're the ones who are perpetuating racism by enabling victimization and creating a fake narrative of white supremacy. The problem is that while claiming that the Southern Strategy not only didn't exist, she's also claiming that Democrats are the ones at fault. So wrap your head around that one, libtards. Now, I'm sure Owens is totally right about this. Even though many historians have come out and said that she is completely wrong, such as Princeton history professor Kevin Cruz, who called her claims, quote, utter nonsense, and after a long thread of debunking her misinformation, tweeted, quote, you can take the Nixon archives, the word of GOP strategists, the RNC chairman, party switches by politicians and region, the GOP platforms, polling data, and all the rest, or you can just hand wave it all away and call the Southern strategy a, quote, myth because of a PragerU video. I kid you not. Do you know what PragerU is?
No.
Okay, PragerU is this idiotic online publication.
Okay.
Wherein and they call
Seems like
themselves
there's plenty of
PragerU.
those.
They call themselves PragerU or Prager University, even according to their own website, they're not actually a university. And they will sell you classes because they are fucking grifter, or they seem like fucking grifters. They spout off so many lies that we could dedicate an entire podcast to just dismantling their web of false claims. Not just an episode, an entire podcast. But you may be asking, why the meme? What's the meme about? Give me the dirt. Well, first, I need to answer another question that may be on your mind. Why in the goddamn shitting idiotic ass garbage fuck was a right-wing political commentator involved in a judicial hearing on the existence of white supremacy? As far as I can tell, Owens isn't an expert on anything at all, ever, and hasn't displayed any discernment or insightful thoughts on a single subject, and is actually a liability to the truth than any semblance of any source of facts you might be suggesting, not me. But your question is valid. Why was she there? Something I absolutely hate to suggest is that a minority, especially a black person, is given their platform because of being a minority. Mm-hmm. This devalues people as people. But it is not a hard stretch to consider that the right is desperate for black voices to speak the things that they're not willing to. And there's video evidence of this. Mm-hmm. But according to Owens, her answer to the press, who were confused by her presence at the event, is that she was a victim of racial hatred. And I'm going to give you a warning. This next part it's fucking gross and infuriating. When Owens was still a teenager, she and a friend of hers named Evan Kopech got into a shouting match at her high school, the Stanford High School in Connecticut. Kopech got suspended because of the incident. And this is when things get infuriating. 2 days after the occurrence, Owens starts receiving phone calls leaving voicemails, and according to reporting, repeatedly used a racial slur. Not that it matters which slur it was, but according to an open letter that Candace wrote to Connecticut, the callers were using the N-word. These phone messages allegedly had 5 different male voices involved. And along with the racial slurs, there were death threats and threats to tar and feather her and burn down her house.
Okay, all disgusting.
Absolutely fucking disgusting. Yeah, this is absolutely disgusting behavior. And the situation didn't seem to get much better. Owen's father wanted to press charges, and according to the lawsuit filed against the Board of Education, Stanford High refused to take action on anything that took place outside the school unless arrests were made. And this was after the Owens family identified voices on the messages and reported them to the school. Owens missed 6 weeks of school because of the stress of having to be in classes with the people who had used racial slurs and threatened to kill her. Mm-hmm. Perfectly understandable. Kopech was arrested eventually, and she returned to class. But the other people involved had not been arrested at that point. Mm-hmm. In the interim, rumors started that she had lied and just wanted to get money. And she was definitely the victim of racism and death threats, and people refused to believe her. And according to the lawsuit, the alleged reason why the school didn't do anything was because one of the people involved in the threats was the 14-year-old son of the Stamford mayor, Daniel Malloy.
What a surprise.
Yeah, shocking. Malloy did later publicly admit that his son was involved in the calls, but that his son didn't know the person who orchestrated the entire thing.
Okay, well, he was still a part of it, so.
Right, yeah. So his son's still in trouble, you know.
Yeah.
And his son, because he was 14, we don't know what charges were brought against him because that is all
Right.
confidential for minors. And in fact, Kopech, when he was arrested, because the events took place while he was still 17, he pleaded as a minor offender. So his charges are also under wraps. So we don't know what his sentence actually was or what he got charged with. Owens never received an apology from the mayor or his son. This is horrible.
Garbage.
Yeah, it's horrible. Nobody should have to go through this shit. That's insane. Which makes it so much more confusing why she would insist that hate crimes are not an issue in the U.S. Owens started the aforementioned left-leaning website, which is ironically named Degree 180.
Okay.
Her left-leaning website that she started before she decided to become a conservative was called Degree 180.
Okay. Yeah.
Just it's perfect. And we're going to get to a logo that just adds to the irony. Now, here's the part no one seems to bring up. And if her critics were aware of it, we certainly would have heard about it by now. Owens had found herself in some horrible circumstances, right? She suffered racist nonsense simply because of her skin color. Accordingly, you would think that she would be understanding of the plight of people who were born into tough situations, right?
You would think.
I mean, it's not like they chose to be in poverty or in high crime neighborhoods or to have a certain skin color that makes people treat you poorly, right? I mean, nobody chose that, right? And we certainly don't choose to be born with debilitating diseases. Those are all things we don't get to decide, right?
Right.
Let me read a long deleted blog post from one Candace Owens.
Oh, Lord.
Not only was this post deleted, the entire website was deleted. And I still have it. I want to make sure and get this right because I'm going to read it word for word. This is a blog post from Candace Owens. There is a widely accepted belief, particularly once you explore the realm of spiritualism, that we map out our entire lives before we are born. We pick our parents, we pick our obstacles, we even pick our illnesses and relationships, all in an effort to work through past karmas and to develop our souls spiritually. I wholeheartedly believe this is true. I'm going to repeat that part. I wholeheartedly believe this is true. And adopting this belief has helped me so much in this life to deal with situations. Rather than blame people that wrong me in life, I try to examine things introspectively and think, I wonder what I maybe did to choose to put this obstacle or grievance before me. This has allowed me to be not only more accepting, but more forgiving.
Okay. No one can see me. I just have my eyes closed and I'm just... Okay.
Your face was perfect on that. Because it's... Anyway, okay. In other words...
Which if that works for people spiritually, that's great. You know? If that's, you know...
But Brandy, look. If you got bad parents, you can't complain about that because you chose them.
Yeah.
Racism got you stressed out, then why did you choose to be black?
Again, if somebody wants to believe in that, then and that helps them get through life, I guess.
It is a
Sure.
for
That doesn't
somebody
really
like
seem- doesn't-
Candace Owens.
It doesn't really sound like Christian-like, though, or
No,
Christ-like, though.
no.
Like very right.
Right.
That
yeah.
doesn't sound like that. But,
No, and
okay.
also it essentially blames people for the situations that they
Yeah.
were born into.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm so surprised nobody's brought this up
Yeah.
before. Like, how have they not brought this up? That this is something she wholeheartedly believes. Okay,
Does she
so
still believe that?
it's hard to say now, because she is kind of all over the place, and it's difficult to trust her. I was only able to dig this up through, archived internet
Right.
stuff for shit that had been deleted many years ago, and I am pretty certain she would not. I'm pretty certain she probably wanted this gone, but under Degree 180.
Okay.
So Degree 180 was her website, her left-leaning website. At least most of the content on there was kind of left-leaning. If you read through her blogs, which I did, there are some right-wing points in there. So like she had little seeds of right-wingness sprinkled about. So a lot of people will say it's
Right.
completely out of nowhere, but I don't think it entirely was, because I do think that she had some inklings of right-wing stuff.
Yeah.
But we're going to get to how hypocritical this turns out to be in a little bit. Actually, we're going to get to it right now. So under Degree 180, or at least under that branding, she started another website, which was an anti-bullying site called Social Autopsy. Well, anti-bullying sounds great, but the site was to create a database of people who engaged in abusive online behavior and possibly post their personal information. Somehow, people didn't think doxing a bunch of internet users was a good idea, and she was called out on this.
Okay.
She blamed the left wing for calling her out. Even though both sides of the political spectrum called her out, including Breitbart, she cites the left wing's backlash toward her, their over-judgmentalism, as the reason why she turned toward conservatism. So presumably, she changed all of her beliefs because people on the left criticized her,
Okay.
which seems insane. Now,
Sounds about right.
now she doesn't believe in climate change. She spouts off her own version of the bootstraps nonsense. She thinks that police brutality isn't a problem for black people. She seems to be opposed to welfare programs and funding underserved schools. Of course, this.
I mean, why not? Because they chose that. So
Yeah, and that's why.
they chose that before
Yeah,
they were
like
born.
you chose to be born into parents who would live in a place where you would end up in a school that was underfunded. You picked that before you were even born, so I mean, you got nothing to complain about. Of course, this switch to conservatism is what eventually landed her a job at the Daily Wire, which brings us to the meme and why it's so funny. The billboard advertising her new show reads, "Uncancelable since 1989. And in a display of how uncancelable she is, she spent months fighting with Ben Shapiro, one of the founders of the website, about the war in Gaza. This led to speculation that she might get fired. While on November 17th, Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring, he said that even if we could, we would not fire Candace Owens because of something that Boring and Shapiro have in common. And that is a desire not to regulate the speech of our hosts, even when we disagree with them." Then on March 22nd, Boring tweeted, "Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship." And this somehow gets better. So essentially, they canceled her Uncancelable show. When asked about this situation, Owens said that the rumors of her departure were true, and she described it as finally being free. And Owens announced that Yeah. I could see you taking a breath like, oh, yeah, okay. She's finally free from Daily Wire. But she announced that she cannot be silenced.
She was free from the Daily Wire, but how long was she a part of it?
Not very long.
Celebrate! I'm free!
Yeah. But also, if it is something, say if my podcast became a part of like a bigger conglomerate somehow, and they wouldn't let me say certain things,
Okay.
that'd be fucking stressful for me because one of my favorite things about the podcast is I can say whatever the goddamn fuck I want. But so I can understand if that were the case, why you would be excited to be let go of a thing like that. Like maybe you had a contract, and they're the ones who let it go. And so you're like, okay, good. I don't have to, I don't have to follow the things of the contract that if I were to quit, So like I could see that being an I'm finally free kind of thing.
Right.
The problem is she was pretty goddamn free as far as I could tell to begin with. And she became a member of the Daily Wire, and this is after the White Lives Matter thing. This is after her defending Kanye West's very obviously anti-Semitic tweet. And it's just her behavior, her abhorrent behavior was the reason she had the job there. So why did she get fired? So Owens announced that she, quote, cannot be silenced.
Right.
And she invited Shapiro to a public debate, which he agreed to, and said he had already texted her on February 29th to offer the same thing. This debate never happened, leaving Daily Wire fans frustrated and confused as to why. Luckily, reporter Glenn Greenwald provided some details as to why the debate never happened. In an article he wrote, Candace Owens, who cannot be silenced, was questioned on the details regarding Greenwald's report, to which she responded, quote, I wish I could comment on this, but I can't. Which weirdly sounds like she's been silenced. And that's because she has. Let me quote from Greenwald's article. Quote, the debate was never going to happen. That is because the Daily Wire, in secret and unbeknownst to its readers, sought a gag order to be placed on Owens after she had called for a debate. They did this under the cover of secrecy before a private arbiter at exactly the same time that they were claiming in public that they wanted to debate and were even negotiating the terms with her. To this date, the Daily Wire has not informed its readers, seeking to understand why the much anticipated debate had not yet happened, and they had not told them that they had sought and obtained a gag order against Owens.
Okay.
So
sounds like a hot mess.
The uncancelable Candace Owens, who cannot be silenced, was both canceled and silenced by a publication that said they would do neither.
They're all of them.
It is
every single one. Just a hot mess.
It's like there's a book I read. It was something super negative. It's like The Problem with Everything or something like that. And it was literally just this guy bitching about everything, and it was fun. It was fun to read.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he said he couldn't stand in media was arguments between two equally contemptible people. And his example was when Keith Olbermann puts Rush Limbaugh as his worstest person. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they're equally contemptible. I think Rush Limbaugh is worse, but that is a debate in which I'm not really rooting for either.
Right. I could just see that debate just being I don't know, just a disaster.
Oh yeah,
in so many ways.
Well, and the thing is,
and that might be probably why they were like, no.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time that Ben Shapiro has tried to protect his brand from some disgusting things that somebody associated with it has done. And part of the reason, one of the things that they cited for the reason why she was fired was she had either liked or retweeted, I can't remember for sure right now, but she had either liked or retweeted a tweet that suggested that Benjamin Netanyahu was drunk on Christian blood, which is the idea that Jewish people drink Christian blood is an old, very anti-Semitic belief, which is not okay to perpetuate. But then also you got Ben Shapiro on the other side, who is Jewish, and he is extremely prejudiced against Arabs. So it's like it's so hard. It's so hard to think about what that debate would have been. It's like the devil and Hitler fighting each other. Like, you're not going to root for either of them. The best outcome would be if they both come out as losers. Like that's the only outcome you can root for. Ugh. But like I said, this isn't the first time that Ben Shapiro has tried to protect his brand from people going a little too far. Even though like this is supposed to be a publication where people don't get canceled and they don't.
They can say whatever they want.
Yeah. So they essentially can't. A contributor to Daily Wire, she might have been an editor, I can't remember, but her name is Denise McAllister, and she sent messages to her to take the Daily Wire out of her bio as something that she does work for because of her anti-homosexual tweets. Which, I mean, he is anti-homosexual, or at least was at some point, and now I think he's playing the political game, to feel, to sound a little less prejudiced. But he is trying to control the language of people.
Yeah.
And while running on this platform of nobody should be canceled and, and
canceled or silenced, and yet he's done both.
Yeah. And I think this is going to backfire them bad on this whole situation.
I mean, it's kind of not predictable, but I don't know what word I'm trying to think of.
It's a self-defeating, like the
they
whole...
They sit there and they claim all this, and then they turn around and just do it. And it's like...
Yeah,
okay.
It's a self-defeating... It's a self-defeating project to make to make a social climate wherein there is no pushback when people are abhorrent to the climate, and so it's going to destroy itself. Like that's what's going to happen. And it's kind of like how, I don't remember who said it, but it's kind of like how when when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and he got rid of all the rules that they had. Somebody said he's going to get rid of all the rules, and then he's going to realize that they were there for a reason. And he has started reinstating a lot of the rules.
Yeah.
And so it's I don't know. Anyway, it's when people don't understand how a social platform's going, or why social platforms have regulations, and when people don't understand that, they have a tendency to really fuck it up. They think it needs to be no holds barred. And that works for 4chan.
Yeah.
But that's a cesspool people can always go back to. The regular people are not going to be using a thing that's going to turn into 4chan. So anyway, that's the story.
That's the one. Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Ugh.
That was kind of my thought too. And there is so much more, but I had already written 22 pages, and I'm like, or no, I got up to almost 30. But and I thought, okay, well, I better call it there because it's just going to keep going. And plus, there's a lot of
down
things.
A hole.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I've discovered that could be their own episodes. So
save those for another time, then. Yeah.
Might be good for the Patreon.
Maybe.
Yeah, possibly. Oh, speaking of which, if you're a listener, we actually do have a Twitter that I'm actually using. It is at meaninglesspod. So go ahead and follow that if you'd like. Thank you all so much for listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.